Before the story begins, I'd like to ask you to subscribe and like. This will help the channel grow. The Lighthouse Murders, a detective mystery story. The wind screamed along the cliffs of Greyhaven Point, flinging sea spray against the jagged rocks. Detective Miles Carter tightened his coat as he climbed the steep path toward the old lighthouse. The call had come just before dawn. A body had been found inside. The keeper, Thomas Hargreaves, had been a fixture in this small coastal town, quiet, punctual, never missed a shift. Now he was dead, sprawled beside the lantern mechanism, his eyes open toward the gray morning sky. The coroner said it looked like an accident, a fall from the spiral stairs. But Carter wasn't convinced. The scene felt too perfect. The oil lamp still burned steady. The watch on Hargreaves' wrist had stopped exactly at 3:07 a.m., and on the desk beside him lay a weathered logbook, one line smeared with ink. "The light isn't mine tonight." Carter leaned closer. A faint smell of salt and perfume. That didn't belong here. Through the cracked window, the beam from the lighthouse swept across the sea, and for a split second, he thought he saw someone standing on the rocks below, staring up at him before disappearing into the fog. At the local inn, Carter questioned the villagers. Everyone said the same thing. Hargreaves hadn't left the lighthouse for weeks. But the barmaid, Clara Doyle, leaned closer when he mentioned the perfume. "There was a woman," she whispered. "Came through 3 nights ago. Red coat, travel bag, asked for directions to the lighthouse. No one's seen her since." Carter drove back to the cliffs as rain began to fall. The storm had turned the coastline into a wall of mist. Inside the keeper's quarters, he found an overturned chair and 2 mugs, one still warm when the body had been discovered. Someone had been there with him. He checked the lighthouse ledger again. Beneath the final entry, he found a faint indentation from a pen, as if something had been written and torn out. Using charcoal and tracing paper, Carter rubbed the page. Slowly, a phrase appeared. "She promised to return the light." His pulse quickened. On the windowsill, hidden behind a lamp, was a red thread caught in a splinter of wood. It wasn't rope, it was silk. And outside, the storm intensified, waves slamming the cliffs like fists from the deep. The next morning, Carter visited the harbor master's office. He found an entry in the ship log for a vessel called the Selena, docked 3 nights before the murder. The captain's name was Eleanor Voss, a smuggler with a history of lost cargo and mysterious disappearances. Her ship had vanished from radar the same night the keeper died. Carter ordered a dive near Greyhaven's Cove. The divers returned with something strange, a sealed glass bottle tangled in fishing nets, containing a note that read, "The light shows the way, but not for you." He held the bottle to the sunlight. Inside was a scrap of old map, the coastline, marked with a cross beneath the lighthouse. That night, he returned to the scene. The wind howled through the spiral stairs as he descended to the lower chamber, where the floor was half flooded. There, beneath a broken plank, he found an old iron hatch. And scratched into the metal, a single initial, EV. A gust extinguished his lantern. In the darkness, he heard a faint sound from below, a rhythmic tapping, like metal against stone. He wasn't alone down there. Carter returned at dawn with backup, but the hatch was gone, submerged under seawater and silt as if it had never existed. The local fishermen swore the tide had been unusually high. "The sea takes what it wants," one muttered. Undeterred, Carter visited the town archives. He uncovered plans for the original lighthouse. Built in 1882, it had a hidden storage vault used during wartime for signaling ships. Blueprints showed a tunnel connecting the lighthouse to the cliffs below, exactly where he'd heard the tapping. He brought a diving light and descended again at low tide. The passage was narrow, slick with algae. At the end, A rusted iron door creaked open to reveal a small chamber, walls lined with glass jars, each filled with seawater and glimmering faintly. In the center stood an old lantern, its glass cracked but glowing on its own. No flame, no battery. Inside the light, faint shapes shimmered like faces. Then he heard it, a whisper behind him. "You shouldn't have come here, detective." He turned, and there she was. Eleanor Voss, her red coat soaked, her eyes cold as the sea. "This light isn't yours," she said. "It never was." Carter froze, gun half raised. "You killed Hargreaves." Eleanor smiled faintly. "Killed him? No. He tried to keep it." She stepped closer, the lantern's eerie glow reflecting in her eyes. "That man found something he shouldn't have, the source of the old light. It's older than this tower, older than this coast. He wanted to sell it. I just took it back." She dropped a waterproof pouch onto the floor. Inside, letters, all addressed to Thomas Hargreaves. Each bore the same phrase, "Keep the light safe until the tide turns." Carter realized this wasn't theft. It was protection, but before he could speak, the sea roared louder. Cracks spread across the walls, water surging through. The chamber began to collapse. Eleanor reached for the lantern. "Tell them he didn't die for greed," she said softly. "He died keeping the promise." Then the tunnel flooded, and everything went black. When Carter awoke hours later on the beach, the lantern was gone, and so was Eleanor. Weeks passed. The sea calmed, and the lighthouse was sealed pending investigation. Carter filed his report. Accidental drowning. But the case gnawed him. One evening, he returned to Greyhaven alone. The fog lay thick as wool, the waves eerily still. He stood at the edge of the cliff, staring at the tower. Its lantern, destroyed weeks ago, was glowing faintly. He entered the keeper's quarters. Everything was just as before, except for the desk. A new page had appeared in the logbook, written in fresh ink. "The light is yours now, detective. Keep it until the tide turns." Outside, a distant horn echoed from the sea. Through the fog, he saw a small red light drifting away, a boat vanishing into the mist. He smiled faintly. "Safe travels, Miss Voss," he murmured. As the tide rose, the beam of the lighthouse swept once across the horizon, and for the first time in decades, Greyhaven slept without storm or shadow.